The event is going to be streamed, so for the people who may go online, just go to stopmotionsolo.com, stopmotionsolo.com. That's the gentleman sitting right there. And I'd like to thank New York University, of course, for making this possible, helping us to do this. Jaira Placid, who organized this event for the last 6 months and did every work. Jaira is somewhere here. So I'd like to thank Jaira. And then, of course, our Institute of African American Affairs, and our co-sponsors, which include the Department of what journalism is hosting us. I might as well thank them right away because the space we had turned out to be too small, and we had to move up to the Department of Journalism. So I'd like to thank them. The Institute for Public Knowledge, of course, it was very generous to help us put this event together, and the Maison Française also is to be thanked. And other than that, let's get to the program with le juge Dredd. Donc, some of you may, yes. Yeah, the chairs up front for some of you. If you please want to come and sit down, so you can do that. That's courtesy Walter Mosley, so thank you. I also, want to thank, before doing anything, my good friend, Professor Chris Winks, who has offered his services as a translator tonight. Edwy is going to go between French and English. So Chris Wink has agreed to help with the translation. Many of you already know Edwy Plenel. He doesn't need an introduction. He was the former editor-in-chief of Le Monde, and he's the creator of, the founder of Mediapart. So he doesn't need, in fact, now people are trying to dub him as Tom Selleck or Judge Dredd. So, he doesn't need any introduction. But, once again, we call you Judge Dredd. But I just want to say, my appreciation, and I'm sure many of you are here for that, for the work that Mediapart is doing in the last 5 years. I'm coming from literature, I do comparative literature, film, and in this age of the internet, you go to Mediapart to read, of course, about the Arab Spring, to read about Taqiyuddin, to read about Mali, and so on. But there are other reasons I appreciate Mediapart, the way they write about literature. Some of the interviews with Jean-Luc Godard I sent to my friends in the United States here, and they still, that was enough for some people to subscribe to Mediapart, just the interview with Jean-Luc Godard, things. So Mediapart, in that sense, has really replaced the Quinzaine Littéraire or the kind of magazines that we used to read when we were students and wanted to know what is new in France and what is in-depth covering of a subject. Badiou, for example, I sent once, there was a long take on Badiou, and I sent it to a friend of mine in Guinea-Conakry, and he read it. He said, yeah, people don't realize Badiou was my professor, and he's still right. He was right then, along with the Althusser's, but he's still right. So Mediapart is making people like that available. It's not just, it's investigative journalism, but it's also an area where people can sit down and think and have a reflection and not just have a tape l'œil, something like that. And so it's really a place, at least for people like myself, who want to go back to France, because I'm from Mali, and Francophonie. France is my tradition, not Francophonie. I was going to almost say Francophonie, but I love France the way I love Mali, the way I love America. In fact, for these three countries, I probably can go to war. And Mediapart is bringing that revolutionary tradition up against the Identité Nationale, the Sarkozys. So he's helping us to come back to France in a way. This is something that many people do not realize. So, you know, when I first invited Edwy, I wanted him to talk about, you know, Tunisia, Egypt, the Arab Spring. And then l'affaire Cahuzac came up, and things become very complicated. The other day I had filmmaker friends at my house, Mama Keita, Abdraman Sissako, and I overheard them. They were saying, oh, you know, Edwy Plenel is coming to New York. Edwy Plenel is coming to New York. I said, oh, this is exciting. So people are also like Edwy Plenel, they also like Mediapart. So the world is becoming one world under the same groove, and I really love that. And without wasting any more of your time, let me bring Edwy. You came to hear Edwy Plenel, so let's bring Edwy Plenel, and merci beaucoup.
Yeah. The mic. I got a loud voice anyways.
Yeah. Not just put this on your shirt.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you to be so many here tonight. I must apologize for my bad English and my awful accent. I will try to introduce this conversation by some few words in English, but after that, I think with the help of Chris, I will perhaps reply in French to more specific questions. First of all, I would like to express my thanks to New York University and to my great friend Montia Diawara, not only for this invitation taken a long time ago, but also for giving me a refuge, an asylum, far away from the French storm caused by Mediapart's revelation in the so-called Cahuzac affair. I hope they will not be disappointed. In fact, New York University and Montia had taken a great risk inviting me, because I must confess that I am an element of disorder, a very dangerous man, according to political and financial powers. A journalist, just a journalist. Yes, really, I am just a journalist, a normal journalist who works normally for a normal democracy. A journalist who serves the traditional conception of our work, as resumed in all the good books on this topic. Our mission is to give information of public interest to citizens in order to help them to be free and self-governed. Our first obligation is to the truth. Our first loyalty is to the public, to the citizen, to the people. And our first discipline is to verify. The question in our troubled time of crisis and transition, time of economic, social, ecological, democratic crisis, the question is why this very traditional conception has become an exception or a problem, a curiosity or an oddity. In France, because of my own investigations yesterday, or Mediapart's investigation today, I was successively, according to a dark legend, not for the people, but for this sort of oligarchy who acts as private owner of common democracy, I was successively an anarchist, a bad French, a national enemy, a bizarre monster as Hitlero-Trotskyist with fascist methods, and also, remember that, for a small time, a CIA agent. Too much for a single man, no? Let's be serious. This bad reputation of investigative journalism for powerful circles in politics or economy expresses our democratic crisis, the weakness of our democratic culture, and the vital stake in their refoundation. To introduce our discussion, I will try to precise 3 points through the concrete story of Mediapart. Firstly, I will resume the recent Cahuzac case, the first big affair for the Mr. Hollande leftist presidency, and what it significates for French democracy after many other scandals, more important scandals, during the Sarkozy's rule with rightist presidency. Secondly, I will tell you about Mediapart, this very special newspaper without paper and without borders, this digital journal, independent and participative, with no ads, no subvention, no sponsor, only the support of subscribers who paid for original, serious, diverse, quality information. Thirdly, I will try to explain why digital revolution is a democratic challenge, why this third industrial revolution of our modernity requires a democratic refoundation, even perhaps a revolution. That means creation, invention, political novelty. The Cahuzac case is very simple. You got a minister of budget, like your Secretary of Treasury, in charge of public finances, expenses, taxes. He organized a very restrictive economic policy. He claims for efforts of all the nation, and he impulses battle, small battle indeed, against tax evasion and tax fraud. At the beginning of last December, Mediapart, after 4 months of investigation, revealed that this man was himself a swindler. He dissimulated during 20 years a bank account in a tax haven, first Switzerland and now Singapore. Our information were quite documented with testimony, documents, facts, dates, places, names, even a tape recording with an accidental, I don't know it's the good word, accidental.
Accidental.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Confession.
By chance.
Yes, by chance. Confession about his Swiss bank account by Mr. Cahuzac himself, with his voice. That's a very simple scandal. According to serious information, a member of the government violated the law which it is supposed to enforce by the citizen. In a normal democracy, this minister will dismiss automatically, even to be free, to defend his honor, to prevent his own government, his majority, his party, from conflict of interest. You cannot stay in power as chief of the tax administration with the suspicion about your own tax fraud. It's not possible. In fact, Mr. Cahuzac don't resign in December, claim, swear, repeat his innocency, and was supported by almost all the political class and the mediatic world in France. During more than 3 months, the little Mediapart was alone against right and left media, and also media, which support the lies of Mr. Cahuzac. That is the real affair Cahuzac. And that is why it is now a big shock for French politics. Not only the facts concern Mr. Cahuzac, but this almost 4 months of complicity of lying. Our democracy did not work. If Mediapart was not determined to defend its investigation, the lie would have been able to win. Why? Because our democratic culture is too weak. Politics in France is determined by what I call presidentialism, which is for presidential regime an imbalance, a pathology, a concentration of power around only one institution and one man. This Caesarism or Bonapartism is like integrism for religion or absolutism for monarchy. This specific situation for French politics weakened democracy with a sort of corruption of public spirit and public space, of pluralism, contradiction, counterpower, and separation of power. The so-called strong state of the Fifth Republic in France is becoming a weak state, submitted to the partisan and private interest. And the dominant media system reflects this sad evolution. The majority of private media in France are the property of industrials or financiers who are not concerned by information, but are only seeking influence for their orders business. Banking, arms dealing, aeronautics, luxury, telephony, public works, and so on. That is what I call in French presse d'industrie, press of industry. Press is an industry, of course, and more you are profitable, more you can be independent. But press of industry is a different reality. It is the submission of press, of its freedom, and of its information to private interest, far away of the right to know of the citizens, against journalism in public interest. In summary, the lesson of the Cahuzac affair is that we need a new democratic rule with a real parliamentary control, with the Freedom of Information Act that not exists in France, with the pluralism of actors and powers, with citizen participation and involvement, and so on. What is, in this very specific context, Mediapart? The co-founders came from the old press, the daily print newspaper Le Monde. And we created 5 years ago Mediapart as a laboratory, a sort of research laboratory to find and verificate new solutions for the press crisis facing the digital revolution. Our purpose was firstly to demonstrate that we could reinvent our tradition thanks to the digital modernity. We think that digital revolution is a point of no return. No paper, no printing, no distribution. For the daily information, yesterday newspaper, printing paper, a technological invention, which this cost saving is like a miracle. But it does not mean necessarily superficiality, immediacy, conformity, blind conformity. That was our goal. Create a pure player which was able to challenge the old press, their printed editions and their websites. A pure player with quality journalism, sustainable journalism, enriched, more informed and better justified journalism. Secondly, we wanted to rehabilitate the information, the news, against the opinion. Yes, against the opinion, against the comment. That is a very important point. With the digital revolution, the people reconquer a right which the journalist had seized from him. From now on, freedom of expression does not need journalists to express my opinion, my point of view, my partisan conviction. I don't need journalists. I can do it myself on internet, on social network. I think that it is the best news for journalism and for journalists. The digital revolution puts us back to our place, to our right place. Our job, our first job, is not to give opinion, not to give comment. This does not define a profession. Opinion belongs to everybody. No, our job, our first job, is to find information, to reveal this factual truth, which is essential to democratic life. These facts without citizens would not know what is made on their behalf in the name of the sovereign people. These facts without which they would not know where they are there, where they go and where goes the world around. In this acception, investigative journalism is not a marginal work, but the symbol of a journalism dedicated to the research of information which are essential for citizens. During the Cahuzac affair, the information of Mediapart was criticized by opinion editorialists, by commentary of the press, by journalists who get only one job, to comment information, not to find information. Thirdly, and as a synthesis of the two other points, Mediapart, and I know it's a hard point here in the United States because of the free and the criticize about paywall, Mediapart defends the value of information. It does not only mean that you must pay for read our article. It means more essentially that our subscribers approve the value of a journalism of public interest. At the age of internet, journalists must defend the utility of their information, their democratic utility. They must prove that there is an increase in value of their production. This way can create a new alliance between citizens and journalists. Mediapart repeats frequently that freedom of the press is not a privilege for journalists, but a right for citizens. And what the political consequences of the Cahuzac affair prove is the democratic utility of this conception of journalism. I quote very often to my students at University of Montpellier in France and Neuchâtel in Switzerland this reflection of Robert Ezra Park in News as a Form of Knowledge. You remember that Park was a long-time city reporter before he creates the sociology department in the University of Chicago. And Park said that a journalist with new, surprising, unexpected information of public interest is a reformer more effective than an editorialist. Because democracy progresses by facing difficulties, by facing the truth, by accepting the contradiction, by resolving a problem. Like a student at the university, you don't give him the solution, you give him a problem. He must face the problem. And that's the same for democracy. In summary, and that is my third point, Mediapart illustrates democratic requirement, and Mediapart uses all the possibility and the potentialities of the digital world. That will be my third point. The link between digital revolution and democratic state. As journalists, we came down from the stage. The public is our partner, definitively. They comment, they criticize, they discuss, they contribute. Now, the amateurs can confront the professionals, give their opinions, their alerts, their informations sometimes. The knowledge is not anymore the property of a self-proclaimed elite. It can be shared from the experience of each. Potentially, in the battle between, on one side, financial avidity and state authority, and on the other side, the sovereignty of the people, there is a great opportunity with digital world. If we are capable of defending the best of tradition, it can become a horizontal world, a world of exchange, a world of equality, a world above all of relationship. And it's very important for me because with Montia Diawara we met around big man who long time was teacher at City University of New York, a great poet in French language from the West Indies, from my childhood country, that's Martinique, a small island. I named Edouard Glissant. And all the work of Edouard Glissant is about what he called poésie de la relation. Poetry of relation. And we discussed many years with Edouard, and I wrote in my last book that, in fact, this poetry of relation is a vision, also a politics vision, of a politics of relation. Montia mentioned this point. Edouard Glissant was against what he called identity with unique root, and he defends identity as relation between. That's all. Identity is built by relationship, and I think it is the political potentiality, the political possibility of the digital revolution. What is the democracy? It's ideal, it's utopia. It is the power of anybody. Without privilege of birth, of origin, of fortune, of education, I have to get involved. I have the right to get involved in it. Democracy it does not mean only the vote every 5 or 4 years. Demography is an everyday concern. We forgot this ideal by choosing a weak vision of democracy, which is only a representative one. The digital revolution shows us the way for inventing a new democracy, stronger and broader, a participative democracy. Thank you.
Okay, the protocol is that we get sets of questions, and you have to pick up a mic and ask your question. Please introduce yourself also. We will really appreciate that. Other than that, actually you have to go to the stand here, the podium here, and ask your question. So please, those who want to ask questions, if you can stand in line here, and the rest is really open, no other protocol. So yeah, go ahead, please. And Edwy may answer so you have to indulge with us. He may answer in French and Christophe. So yeah.
And if you ask the question in French, I'll translate it with the
If I
audience.
don't understand, I ask.
Bonsoir et merci d'être avec nous, Monsieur Plenel. Ma première question, je m'appelle Agerna Edwy, je suis journaliste pour la publication en ligne Women's News. Ma première question est, donc j'ai l'impression que Mediapart est un magazine, à vrai dire, indépendant. Est-ce que le fait d'être un média indépendant vous aide dans votre investigation à gagner cette confiance parmi les sources, parmi les personnes que vous interrogez? Est-ce que ça vous facilite dans ce travail? Et ma seconde question est, qu'est-ce que le printemps arabe et la contribution, la participation des Tunisiens, des Égyptiens, des individus dans le monde arabe, sur Twitter notamment et Facebook, qu'est-ce que cette contribution sur le social network a enseigné à Mediapart?
Okay, the question has to do with, first, it was a two-part question. She is also a journalist for an online publication, Women's News, was it? Okay, Women's E-News. And the first question was about the fact that Mediapart is independent. Has that been helpful in gaining the confidence of the sources that you approach? And secondly, what effect has during the Arab and North African Spring, the events in Tunisia, Egypt, etc., what effect has the use of social media like Twitter and Facebook had on Mediapart's approach to its mission? I think I got everything.
Okay. I will try in English, and if I make mistakes, and you can. Okay, on the first point, you are quite right. Independence is the first condition. You know, the history of Mediapart, and you understand that I want to defend this alliance between tradition and modernity. I think in all the time of crisis, of transition, people who defend the best of the tradition with no prejudice.
No prejudices.
More prejudices against modernity will win. Will win. Okay.
Yes.
And I think that's the meaning of the laboratory, this sort of research laboratory, to prove that if we defend tradition in the modernity, the best of the tradition, we will create value, we will create jobs, we will create a rich, a good enterprise. Why I give this point? Because in the French tradition, where we got a very bad ecosystem in the media, with the private owners from other industries, and also with the many monies from the state. You know, 10% of all the chiffre d'affaires.
The business statistics.
More than 10% of the
figures.
the figures of the press industry, more than 10%
please do not correct the translator. If you know, you're great. So go ahead.
And don't shoot the piano player. He's doing the best he can.
Okay. More than 10% came from the state. It's the public money. A daily newspaper like Le Monde, during the 3 last years, received 55 million from the state. That's the bizarre ecosystem. The arms dealing and so on, aeronautics, and also the state money. In this situation, we lose some battles in newspaper which were independent in the last time, in Le Monde, in Libération, which were newspaper which was controlled by the redaction, by the journalists. And that's also one of the key about Mediapart. We decide to create Mediapart not like a startup, but like a real journal with a cultural section, economic section, international report, and political subject, with all the hard news of the public interest, national, international. And we create Mediapart first with our own money. And I put what I take from when I grew up from Le Monde, but also I take from not a Swiss bank, but another bank, some money, and I give them until each month some money. But what I want, in summary, we take our risk because of this independence. I must trust this journal, and I must trust this question of independence. But I don't want to be trop sectaire.
I don't want to be too sectarian.
Too sectarian. If the democratic ecosystem of the media, of the press, is better, is all the condition is better, many journalists can find their independence. In other media, they must, it's a battle. You must confront this big rule. You are not at the service of the employers. You are at the service of the public, and you must fight on this question. Your second question, more important about, that was the previous debate about the Arabic revolutions 2 years ago. The Syria case is the demonstration that social network is not sufficient.
It's not enough.
It's not enough to put down a dictator. But at the beginning of the Tunisian revolution, and after that Egyptian, and also Yemen, and so on, there was the beginning of a public space. That's the consequence of the digital revolution. No borders. This horizontal circulation of information. And I want to remember one event about a big affair here, that's WikiLeaks. You know, for the Tunisian people, when they read one cable, not 10, not 100, one cable from the State Department, only one, which was in English. It was from the Tunisia, the embassy, the US embassy in Tunis. And it was translated in Arabic language and in French language. And that was, this cable was like a journalistic report from the ambassador, from the heart of the power, the great power, the United States, to the State Department. And what was this cable? The title of the cable was, I give you in French a good translation. Tout ce qui est à toi est à moi.
Everything that's yours is mine.
That was the title of the cable. Why? Because, like an article, like a report in daily. Why? Because this cable told to the State Department, secret cable, but all the prevarication, all the corruption of the Ben Ali rules. Tout ce qui est à toi est à moi. All is yours is mine. And that was, and for the Tunisian people, and that's what I want to point about information. Information as a liberation, as a potential freedom. The Tunisian people in French, in Arabic, they read, the United States, they know the prevarication. But, okay, the big power, they know that also. Why do we support? If they know, we can go. If they know, we can fight. If they know, we can be courageous. And that was an impact of the concrete digital revolution. Not, in fact, there is a technical way, but that's very important. That's what you put on this, dans les tuyaux, what circulates. That's the information.
In the pipeline.
And that's the reason. I know the polemics, but I support WikiLeaks for that. I support WikiLeaks for that. Because WikiLeaks challenge this idea that when you are weak, you are a small people with many, you must support dictator, army, torture, and so on. But information, it's a strategy du faible au fort.
Of the weak to the strong.
Yes, the weak to the strong. I can't find it.
That's why I'm here.
That's a strategy. And I think there is an ideal, a pacific idea about that. And that's my reply about Arabic Spring.
Bonjour et merci donc pour tout ce que vous faites. Et, je m'appelle Emmanuel, je suis militante à Sud étudiant à l'ENS de Paris et je suis à New York. Bon, c'est un peu bizarre, mais je travaille pour les services culturels de l'ambassade de France. Donc j'ai deux questions.
Just to say, she works for the French embassy in the cultural section, so that explains her diffident approach.
But I am a CIA agent.
Non, mais
don't work for you.
mais je suis militante à Sud étudiant.
And she's a student.
Donc j'ai deux questions. La première porte sur le sujet de votre conférence, et la deuxième est un peu plus large, on va dire.
The first part of her question is about the topic of his lecture, and the second is of a rather larger breadth.
Voilà. Alors c'était l'idée que une démocratie véritablement participative, où tous les citoyens avaient un véritable involvement, un véritable engagement, était possible dans des formes, on va dire, de société où de telles avancées technologiques n'étaient pas encore à l'œuvre. Je pense par exemple aux traditions démocratiques de la palabre sous l'arbre dans certains pays d'Afrique, ce qui n'est évidemment pas possible dans un système mondialisé. Donc je voulais juste savoir, c'est un détail, mais si on ne peut pas plutôt dire que la digital revolution est plutôt la forme que prend cette façon d'accroître la démocratie, comme vous avez dit, mais dans un contexte de mondialisation, et donc pas en tant que telle, elle n'aurait pas été nécessaire si le contexte a été différent. Voilà. Donc la deuxième, c'est qu'effectivement, cette importance de l'information, comme a montré l'affaire Cahuzac, a contribué à une véritable percée démocratique dans notre pays, une façon vraiment, pour le coup, efficace de donner du pouvoir à une autre forme d'opinion que celle régnante. Je pense par exemple à une conséquence politique particulière de la révélation de l'affaire Cahuzac, qui est le débat sur la politique d'austérité. Je sais qu'il y a eu beaucoup de manifestations, des formes traditionnelles de contestation, et qui n'ont pas abouti à une véritable contestation au sein du gouvernement, ou on va dire sérieuse, avec une vraie visibilité des politiques d'austérité, alors qu'avec cette nouvelle façon, finalement, avec l'information, etc., avec ce type de révélation... Oui, le débat sur l'austérité a enfin été abordé. Pardon.
Moi, j'en ai la tête pleine, je ne sais pas comment il faut réagir parce que c'est très difficile de maintenir tout dans ma mémoire.
Peut-être qu'il faut simplement traduire Edwy.
C'est l'idée qu'avec cette nouvelle forme de permettre aux citoyens de contester, enfin, on a abordé un vrai débat sur les politiques d'austérité. Voilà. Et comment pouvez-vous l'expliquer? Voilà.
Okay.
Je ne sais pas comment.
There was two questions. One question about, in fact, what I call participative democracy.
Right.
Exists also in all traditions.
Yes, in Africa, like under the tree, the palaver.
Yes. But you know, there is in this place there is a great scientist for me, a philosopher in France. That's Bernard Stiegler, and all the work of Bernard Stiegler is to criticize the techniques and the idea that techniques is logically freedom, and that was not my speech. I say that we must take techniques.
Yes.
We must take technology. We must take all these instruments, take them to like a levier, like
a lever.
Like a lever. For a democratic challenge, a democratic stake and so on. And that's for me what I want to say when I speak about this alliance between tradition and modernity. In fact, yes, with the participative media like Mediapart, there is a palaver with the subscribers, the subscribers, the people, and they discuss. There is many links, many contradictions, and I think we don't lose time. Many journalists think that it's a problem of time. All this criticize, all these messages, all this commentary, and I think it's quite the inverse. You create confidence, you create a new relation, and that's the key for this sort of new media. The second question was about the shock of the events. Finally, this complicity of lying about Mr. Cahuzac provoked also a debate in France about the political orientation, not only about the democratic culture and control and so on, the transparency and so on.
But also about austerity.
Yes,
I think
austerity.
that.
But why there is this debate? Because this Cahuzac affair was for me a very simple, a very pedagogical affair.
A teaching moment. Right?
A teaching moment for democracy. Because this question, the question of tax even, I wrote last September a very long, strong, detailed article on Mediapart that was against the mafia of fraud tax.
Yes.
And that was an article with many details about the importance in our economic crisis around the world, and notably Europe at this time, of tax even.
Evasion.
Evasion, yeah.
Yes, evasion
Tax-
and
tax
the
fraud.
role of the tax paradise even.
Yeah,
Yes.
the offshore
Well,
havens.
the offshore.
Paradise, I
Yes,
like that.
yes. Because it's not a secondary question. It's now in the heart of the financial economy. The figures last summer of all the money in this tax offshore paradise even, that's 25.5 billions of euros. That's more than the addition of the PIB, Produit Intérieur Brut,
The gross national
the gross
profit,
national
or domestic GDP.
GDP of United States and Japan. And that's only money, no arts, horses, les immeubles, les
Real estate,
okay, real estate and so on.
housing.
That's the big question. All the great banks, all the great industries, enterprise, got filial,
They have
filial-
subsidiaries.
subsidiaries in this sort of place. And for me, it's really a big question, because we ask at this time to the people to give more money, to work more years, to make efforts. And at the same time, a big part of the national wealth goes to this place.
So, yeah.
Which no, they don't give to the nation. I remember in this book, the first scoop of Joseph Pulitzer. The first scoop of Joseph Pulitzer. The first daily newspaper, Joseph Pulitzer, we came from Hungary and arrived as immigrants here, European immigrants. And his first scoop was when I'm tired, he bought the first daily newspaper at St. Louis, Missouri.
Yes.
That's the St. Louis Post and Dispatch.
Yeah.
And he created a big event. What's an investigation? He made an investigation about all the richest people of the town. All what they call, all their properties and so on, all. And he published the figures of the rich and the figures of what they pay as tax. Very small, very big, very small. And he began a campaign. Say, self-made man, I'm in the country of all the possible. You can be rich. You must be rich if you can. But if you become rich, you must give to the... Because you don't become rich alone. There is the society. There is all the conception, all the links with the society. And that first campaign of Mr. Pulitzer was against tax evasion, tax fraud. And that's the demonstration of the Cahuzac affair. They ask us for efforts, and they make fraud. They don't respect the law. They ask us the law. And against popular, you know, if Mediapart had published an investigation about a drug traffic in a popular area, the justice came at the same immediately against barbarians, against this delinquency of crisis. That's a great violence. It's a great brutality, which all the politics applaud. The justice don't work in the Cahuzac affair. You know how the justice finally works? And that's the reason I take Pulitzer, because I am criticized about that in France. Because I saw during 1 month, nothing. Just, Mediapart, against Mediapart. And nothing. There was facts. There was potential crimes. public, and you don't move. I take my computer, my media part, and I wrote a letter, an open letter to the prosecutor. And I say, there is public facts, and you don't move. You must move. And finally, he moved. And you know the result. Why I insist about this demonstration, about inequality, about words and facts and acts. They tell words, and finally they say they do the contrary. Because, you know, there was a big mafia, anti-mafia prosecutor in Sicilia. His name is Roberto Scarpinato. He's stealing jobs with many cops to protect him. And he wrote a big book in France. In French, it's Le Retour du Prince, The Return of the Prince of Machiavel. And in this book, he explained the links with the down mafia and the upper mafia, the very violent criminal mafia, and also another word with lawyers, with politicians, with links. And in this book, he makes a reflection about one word. That's obscene. Obscene. You know, when we revealed the tape of Mrs. Bettencourt, that was 3 years ago. You know, the majordome of Mrs. Bettencourt, very old woman, the richest woman in Europe, L'Oréal and so on. Mrs. Bettencourt was very weak, very not old, okay? And many people are around Mrs. Bettencourt to take her money. Okay. Many people. And the majordome, it's a real story. It's a big movie if we were in Hollywood. The majordome was very, very sad for his mistress. And during the tea and the business meeting, he put a little tape recorder. And it's not fair. And he will go to the justice for that. But he goes to the police. He gives them. Yes, there is a crime. There is, that's a whistleblower. He says it's not normal. It's not normal. We find this 20 hours of tape recording. We learn. It was like this movie about spying in East Germany, La vie des autres in French.
The life of others.
Okay, that's very curious and very bad. We 21 years. Hours. 21 hours. And if you understand, it's okay. 21 hours. And we decide to put away all the private life. Rest only 1 hour. 1 hour. 1 hour. 1 hour. And we publish 1 hour about they don't pay tax, and our revelation is what the good news for the state. They take money. They don't give to Mediapart, but they take big. Okay, that's also proved illegal financing for politics and for Mr. Sarkozy and his party. Also conflict of interest. Also entrave à la justice. I don't know.
Obstruction of justice.
Obstruction of justice. All the facts of public interest, not private. But what I want to point is about this word obscene of Roberto Scarpinato. When you got this recording, you are people that it's normal for them to don't respect the common law, the ordinary law. It's normal, and that's millions of euros. And sometimes the gestionnaire de fortune, I don't know the word.
The administrator of the fortune.
Of Mrs. Bettencourt, tell her, you remember, you tell me about my yacht, you must give me 12 millions. You remember like a gift. Like a gift. 12 million for my yacht, my new yacht. That was obscene. That was obscene. And do you know the origin in Latin language of this word, obscene? Obscenum. Obscenum. What is outside the scene? What you don't see? What is secret? What is not revealed? And that's the key about this event. We reveal with this story a reality that shocked all the people. And that ask me, we don't go normally. We ask for effort for the people, but there is many. For tax fraud for France, it's around by year 60 millions. But when you go all the, not millions, 60 billions, billions,
oh,
no,
milliards,
billions,
yeah,
billions, not millions. That's a lot of money. And why I tell you that? Because even in your debate sometimes here in the United States, you forgot one man. I quote in this book this speech. We had to struggle with the old enemies of peace: business and financial monopoly, speculation, reckless banking. They had begun to consider the government as a mere appendage of their own affairs. We know how that government by organized money is just as dangerous as government by organized mob. Franklin, Delano, Roosevelt at Madison Square in 1936. That's the explanation of the word mafia I use. This word is like mafia. Only money, avidity, power of money, and secret. Secret and money. Secret and money. Appropriation of money and secret. And I think that's the shock of this event for the French people.
More questions?
Bonsoir, Denis Alexandre.
Only French question? No US question? But you can go.
Je suis banquier.
Banquier.
Mais abonné à Mediapart bien avant Cahuzac. Voilà.
Thank you.
The reader of Mediapart.
Moi, j'avais une question sur la différenciation que vous avez faite entre opinion et information. Vous avez beaucoup insisté sur le fait qu'il fallait informer et pas forcément donner son opinion. N'avez-vous pas l'impression qu'une partie des critiques que vous avez reçues, c'est justement parce que vous n'arrivez pas à mettre une frontière entre les deux? Et dans le petit speech que vous nous avez donné en introduction, pour moi, dans l'affaire Cahuzac, l'information, vous l'avez donnée, et après, l'opinion, c'était « il doit démissionner ». Et dans la suite de votre discours, vous avez quand même tenu à préciser la Ve République, le régime présidentiel, etc. Moi, en tant que lecteur, c'est ce qui me choque.
Okay, this was about Monsieur Plenel's distinction between information and opinion, where the function of the new digital journalism is to give the information and then the opinion comes later, but nonetheless the questioner was somewhat shocked by the fact that this whole thing was about the Fifth Republic, that he said at the very end of his speech, and that the criticism that he was giving of it and what the affaire Cahuzac showed, I think that's the substance, no?
Yes.
Opinion and
yeah, and then that was blurring,
right.
That in effect this supposed distinction was being blurred,
right.
In the speech and in the reaction. So, he was kind of surprised about that and wanted to hear more.
It's a very important question, and in fact, I wrote this book for you also because I replied. But I think and there is misunderstanding about that. I have opinion like all citizens. like you, like everybody here. And I am also a journalist. What I say my job is to give information, but I can have reflection, debate, comment with this information. Appuyer sur ces informations.
To support oneself on that information.
On this information.
To rely or to buttress oneself.
If you take Mediapart, our editorial line is an extreme democratic one. And when I criticize the Fifth Republic, it's because during the last 35 years, under all the presidency, François Mitterrand, Jacques Chirac, Nicolas Sarkozy, and now François Hollande, I got 60 at this time, I am the man who, not only me, but frequently me, the man who gave the bad news, the affair of the president's the Mitterrand presidency, the affair of the Chirac presidency, the affair, and they got to the judge now of the Sarkozy presidency, and now the first affair of the Hollande presidency. And what I say about the Fifth Republic is I knew that the democracy does not function after this sort of revelation. One example. There is in France, and I know there is a debate here about that. There is in France, that was created at the beginning of the 19th of the last century, a public financement of the parties and of the electoral campaign. We give 75 millions each year to the party in the parliament. We give money for the elections and so on. With condition, but there is a public financement of the political democratic life. Why? Because of our revelations. I revealed at the end of the 80s that the left has illegal financement like the right. And that shocked all people because right is normally linked to the money and left pretended we are linked to the people. But in fact, there was illegal financement in the two camps. And the shock of our revelations create a democratic debate, and they decide the democracy got a price. We cannot go with all this, I know the debate here in the States, with all this money from private and so on. And finally, there is this public financement. That was 20 years ago. All our information now prove that's not functions. There is, they continue with illegal financement. The Sarkozy scandals, that's in the judges at this time, it's money from armed dealings, with corruption, with big retro commissions. Yeah. What we say, the commissions is for the outside, but they came in return in France, and that's a big question. Though, by my comment, I think I'm not in a pure opinion. Do you like, do you don't like, what you think, what you don't think. I think it's informate opinion. But I go far away about your question. There is a great reflection that is for me the philosophical manifest about journalism. That was written here by Hannah Arendt at the end of the 60s, and that was for the New Yorker, and the title is Truth and Politics. You know, that was after Hannah Arendt, that's important. This is the same point about facts, information, and what sort of opinion. Hannah Arendt, you know, it's normally now a very classical reflection, Eichmann in Jerusalem. That was for the New Yorker. And you know, that was about, I know the word in English, banalité du mal.
The banality of evil.
Banality, yes, I can find also. But banality of evil, the crime de bureau, crime from
the office, from the desk.
Yes,
you know,
the crime from the desk and so on. The ordinary crime. And for a not ordinary crime. And that reflection of Hannah Arendt create a great polemics with calumny, self-hating Jew in the Jewish community here and also in Israel. Because it was not exactly the point of view of the state of Israel. It was an independent reflection with facts. She were at the trials. And when she wrote Truth and Politics, it was about all this polemics, calumny against her. Why is article about this trial, with these facts, create a hard campaign against her? And that is in this text, in this article, she distinguished truth of opinion and what in the French translation is vérité de fait, factual truth.
Yeah.
Factual truth. And she insists that there is a big problem because a world where there is only our opinions, my opinion against your opinion, my point of view, my community, my religion, my identity, and so on, my prejudice, okay, all, it's not a common word. To create a common word, with all our differences, opinions, plurality, we must put on the table this factual truth. We must create the conditions, and that's the goal for the press, for the social responsibility of journalism. Put this truth, this factual truth. That is not only, there is not only one truth, but I must debate what's this factual truth. And that's the reason of the misunderstanding about my way in France. Because, okay, I got opinion, I create comment, I express, but what I do as journalist during 35 years is to publish information even against my opinion. Even against my opinion. Everybody in France knows that I am normal leftist citizen. Okay. But I publish all the bad news on the first leftist presidency, that was François Mitterrand. And during the Sarkozy presidency, many people say, oh, there are it's a sort of obsession against Sarkozy. Mediapart will failed after the defeat of Mr. Sarkozy. Mr. Sarkozy is the key of the success of Mediapart. Without Sarkozy, they don't do nothing. There are no independent. And they tell that also because 7 years ago, I was free. I was not in Le Monde and not in Mediapart. That was the transition at this time. And I accept a book of discussion between one political man, which is François Hollande. And they saw how they could be independent with a co-founder, a president of Mediapart, which discussed with François Hollande 7 years ago. I know François Hollande. I knew François Hollande 30 years ago when during my first investigation he was in charge of the communication of the government. He was chief of staff of the minister, which was the porte-parole, the spokesman of the government in '83. And I knew Mr. Hollande because I tell him, all your communication is lying. It's lies. And I will demonstrate you. I got the facts. I got the facts. And we're not angry, we were fair play, and that's the beginning of a loyal relationship. But what's arrived? François Hollande is president. Mediapart published alone against all this media system, against even the rightist media, the big information about the contradiction between the words and the acts of this government. That's my point of view. Okay, I got some comments, but you know, a new media, participative media, is not a media with one opinion. It's finished. You disagree with an opinion in Mediapart, you can comment, but you can also go to what we call the club. That's a platform with blogs, with all the contribution, and you can say that's foolish. I don't agree, and I will explain. And we got many contributions like that. That's I think there is no hypocrisy in my demonstration.
Couple more questions. Yes.
Bonsoir, Stéphane Dujaric, je travaille aux Nations Unies. Except for Mediapart, you painted a very dark and depressing picture of the media ecosystem in France. A, do you have any hope that it can change? And B, if so, what needs to be changed? Is it regulations on ownership? Is it how journalists are trained or how they're recruited? Interested in sort of...
I think that there are many journalists in other medias who fight in the same way that Mediapart. And I don't think... I just want to explain how this sort of solitude... Solitude, yes.
Solitude?
Solitude, yes. Oh. This sort of solitude of Mediapart. I want to understand. I want to understand why. Because the demonstrations were there. And that's the reason I made this opposition. But in fact, there is many journalists in TV, radio, newspaper, who do agree with Mediapart and with this conception. I think also that we create a new move in media because we don't give lessons. I think we give courage, enthusiasm for this job, for this profession, for this challenge for information and democratic issues in information. What is the good solution for the media situation in France? You know, during the second industrial revolution, that's marked the translation to Europe to United States. For the media, the rotative, this was a US invention, the printing press. Also the how called the linotype for the characters.
Yeah, the linotype.
And there is a big movie of Sam Fuller, that's Park Avenue, about that very the illustration of this technological revolution and democratic revolution of the mass press, and which I quote Pulitzer. And during this second industrial revolution, at the beginning, France was very late on the democratic point of view. Around 1 century of dictatorship, Napoleon I, Napoleon III, kings, and very many defeats of democratic ideals, and republic. The republic is very far away. That's turned around after the big crisis of the Paris Commune and the great massacre of workers in Paris. That's turned around the 80s of the 19th century. How the Republicans, I would say in France, Républicains.
Yeah, Republicans with a small R.
Yes, yes, not I understand. How they deal with this situation? They began by two sort of laws. First, at the same time, education law, that public, the school, free school, obligatory school, with the state public financement. All people must know to write, read, and so on, calculate. And at the same time, in 81, they vote the better law about freedom of press at this moment. France was late, and just after that, France was en avance.
It was ahead of the game.
That's this law began. En français, c'est l'imprimerie et la librairie sont libres.
The printing press and the bookstore and the library or the library are free.
Are free. No, just free. Just free.
Not
and
free of charge, but libre, you know, not gratuit.
And that creates a new ecosystem that's with the great dynamic of the freedom of press. Even with the press, with scandals, with the bad campaign, the Dreyfus affair, but also the contrary. And finally, the Dreyfus crisis. That was the democratic camp who wins. And know the anti-Semitic, and know the anti-Semitism. And that was very dynamic democracy. What I appeal for freedom of information in my country is the same with the third revolution. A new big law that creates a new ecosystem. That means, and for many countries, that means you got it in US. That means the Freedom of Information Act, the publicity. You know all the debate now during the last week about the publicity. That's not the Freedom of Information Act. It's that must be automatic. You must all public information must be public. That's the reason we can control. But that also means the fight against conflict of interest in the press. It's not normal that media are controlled by industries who depends from state contract, from a relationship with the government, and that you can regulate that by the law. Okay. I think also all this financial aids. It's not good. I prefer what we call in France les aides indirectes.
Indirect support or aid or help.
That's all the condition. That's to say, information is not a merchandise like other merchandise.
It's not a commodity. It's not.
Yes, it's a specific one with democratic issue and so on. Also, we must create this debate. I think in this moment we got only one arm. That's the extent of democratic debate. You know, the big crisis, very depressed in Europe, is about a small category of people who thinks they know quite well what is good for us. And we don't debate, we don't control. And that's the reason of the depression. It's not automatic that this political depression in Europe go to the far right, to the racism, to the bouc émissaire, I would say, the bouc émissaire. It's not automatic. My democratic engagement as journalist and citizen, it's not like an opinion like others. It's a common word. We must extend this democratic practices and so on, to go against this danger of racism, of conflict between nations, between people, between identity, and so on. That's the challenge at this time. That's the reason I think we got new revelation, new information to go far away in this direction.
Super. Comprendre tes questions.
Oui, non, ça va. Tant que
so
vous me supportez.
I think he's getting tired, but he said no, so he's got
bonsoir, je m'appelle Florent, je suis docteur en biologie à l'Université de Columbia, encore une française pour vous poser une question. En fait, j'avais une question, mais qui va reprendre la question précédente et aussi deux commentaires. Je voudrais d'abord dire qu'en France, tous les médias ne vous sont pas tombés dessus. Le monde diplomatique et l'humanité ne vous ont pas critiqué. Je pense que c'est important de le dire. D'autre part, sans... Et l'humanité, s'il vous plaît.
Oh, well, I'm an anti-Stalinist, so I forgot l'humanité.
L'humanité n'est pas un journal stalinien, mais bon, on pourra en reparler. D'autre part, je voudrais dire que sans, bien entendu, négliger le rôle des médias dans les révolutions arabes, c'est avant tout des gens des peuples, des mouvements sociaux. Et je pense qu'aujourd'hui, dans le monde dans lequel on vit, et avec la difficulté quotidienne de se battre, je pense que c'est très important de le dire. Et moi, la question que j'avais, qui en fait reprend la question précédente, c'est j'ai beaucoup d'amis journalistes, je suis docteur en biologie ou postdoc, comme on dit, c'est-à-dire que j'ai un statut précaire. La plupart de mes amis journalistes sont aussi des précaires. Et malgré leur grande volonté d'indépendance, ils doivent vivre, ils doivent manger. Et donc, ils écrivent à la commande. C'est-à-dire qu'ils sont payés à la page. Donc, moi, j'aimerais savoir exactement... On parle beaucoup de l'affaire Cahuzac d'un point de vue réflexion politique. Mais quel en est-il exactement de la réflexion par rapport au travail de journaliste? Et, je veux dire, aujourd'hui, dans le monde dans lequel on vit, c'est impossible d'être indépendant. D'être indépendant, d'en vivre. Donc vous, aujourd'hui, comment vous pensez pouvoir utiliser ce qui s'est passé pour vraiment essayer d'utiliser ça comme une opportunité pour créer un autre journalisme vraiment indépendant et de réflexion
Okay, the substance of the question was that she's emphasizing several points, actually, that the Arab Spring was not just a matter of media, but of people getting together and struggling. And she, I think, moved from there to talk about how she's in this country working in, precarity on the margins, if you will. And she said it's very, very difficult to she has many friends who are writing pretty much according to command, more or less, and that she's stressing the great difficulties of actually having an independent voice in the conditions that are here today. I hope I'm doing justice to what you're saying.
Before Edwy responds, I would really, one of the reasons we invited Edwy Plenel here is because we felt many similarities with the US situation on the question of democracy, on the question of press. We wanted to not only bring him here, but put him in relation, in conversation with the Americans. And he's been written about in the New York Times, in the Guardian, in the Time magazine. So obviously, American felt something. But the big silence of the American is beginning to worry me.
Well, that's actually new. I think
like
that's newsworthy in itself.
So
it speaks to our current moment.
So I would like to hear some Americans.
Yeah, somebody might say something bad about Obama.
And this is not to downplay the serious issue about France.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
and I hope that I'm not offending anybody. Okay, we come to you when he answers. Because the question about the l'humanité and the job of precarity was very important. So I'll let him. And I'm also getting direction to end this soon. So
No Americans.
No, I will definitely get some American. I have to.
Yes, one. I think you're right. One.
Okay. No, about the Arab Spring, I do agree. I speak about social networks and the activism like WikiLeaks and the circulation of information, not only about media. There was no professional, independent, free media in Tunisia before the insurrection of the people. Even we act with the people. There is no, even media like Mediapart depends on the people. That's the support of the people. That's the concrete success of media. About precarity, I do agree also. What can I say? We try to demonstrate with the small experience that perhaps it's possible to invent other way. There is no precarity in our story. We create jobs. We were less than 30. We are 45 now. We perhaps we grew up and perhaps we can create other developments or perhaps other experiences. For example, once a month we organize a sort of new TV on Mediapart. That's a live session during 6 hours, excuse me. 6 hours. That's free access at this time for all the people. And we are very surprised of the success with the replay after that of all this event. Because you know the crisis of the media now is a battle with information against entertainment. And entertainment for me is like all this talk show with opinion, your advice, my advice, your advice, my advice, I don't agree. It's like entertainment. It's not, there is an information, what means this information, what facts, what's precisely, concretely, and so on. And the consequence is there is what's the impact of the digital revolution is that there is many media de flux, immediate flux. Yes,
I don't
flux.
know how to say
You don't know the word,
yeah.
but yes. Well, flows, okay,
well,
immediately, and that superficiality,
24-hour news cycle,
superficiality, and so on. And when we organize this sort of event, people have had time to speak, to discuss, to argument, and people like that to take time to discuss and so on. And perhaps if we have the money for that, we will go away on this sort of, that's not the good word, sort of TV on internet, with very contents, very hard news, very thought news, very elevation of the public debate. And I think we need that. We are just an example. We are just an experience. I don't got a response for replied for all the situation, all the question in all the media. I just think that there is we are required by our liberty, by our as journalists and as citizens. And Mediapart just want to demonstrate there is a way. There is a way to create value, create utility, create richest democracy.
Well, yes. One more.
I was born in New York City.
Authentic American.
I'm for a second-generation American.
Just kidding.
I have some journalism in my background. And unfortunately, I'm old enough to have sat through something not too different from this in the 1970s with big journalists that I went to college with. The question came up, in fact, I think somehow the question came up about friendship between these TV reporters and magazine reporters and their sources. And followed up with a question, well, you know, how can you be independent with all of these friendships?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer came back from a reporter who was at CBS at the time and has since went to the Arab news service. Sorry, I can't remember the name.
Al Jazeera.
Al Jazeera, but in English. We just have to try harder to be independent because we're friends. Is there a better answer?
Could we have one or two more questions, because I'm being told to close this. So one or two more questions, and he gives one answer. We get to your point. Go ahead.
Greetings, my name is Mikita. So I want to know, with your experience, what is your informed opinion as someone who lives in Caribbean and also a journalist about the situation with Haiti? I guess, I don't know if they still are, paying France money, even though, you know, France basically colonized, got free money from slavery, imperialism, hegemony, etc. Thank you.
Any more questions? Quick. This is great. Just concise, quick. Yes.
Moi, j'aurais encore une dernière question en français.
Mais rapide, rapide. Oui, il n'y a pas de problème.
C'est le retour des pensées.
Concernant les révélations de Mediapart, dans le dernier Ce soir ou jamais, Elisabeth Lévy parlait d'un tribunal médiatique sur les affaires Cahuzac et sur la mise en examen de Sarkozy. Donc ma question est, existe-t-il un tribunal médiatique qui condamne ou innocente les politiques, ou doit-il exister un tribunal médiatique pour ceci?
Should there be a media tribunal, and does one exist, and should there be one?
This is it, right? Good. Voilà.
It's kind of like a press overseer
yes,
or
ombudsman. About the sources, I think my reply is you must educate your sources. That's question of not friendship, I think education of your sources. What I mean is that the good sources is sources that respect your independence. That's in this way. I broke with sources when sometimes when they want to influence me. I broke. I don't continue the relationship because I think it's too tough, too hard. I cannot deal. It begins complicated, psychological. No, I broke. And the best sources is sources, and I got some in the States, in the heart of the state, during the many presidency, and around the Élysée Palace and the heart of the system. And the better sources, that sources which respect their count, their fidelity, and also respect you. I got one during the 14 years of Mr. Mitterrand presidency. It was a haut fonctionnaire, how would you say?
A high
public service.
A highly placed government official.
Yes.
I'm using the lingo.
And it was with great loyalty with the power. But also, he thinks sometimes that politicians don't manage the state well. And sometimes he wants to, he accepts to give, it's like a deep throat perhaps, but he accepts to give information to save, in his mind, to save his conception of the state. You understand? And but never he give information as influence to manipulate. Never. It was a loyalty. You must educate your sources. You must create a relationship that's in this sort of way. And if once a time a source lies to you, you must quit. It's never longer a source. Secondly, on IT, I know quite well the story of IT, and you know it's a. You know why there is a Louisiana speak English and no French? You know the story.
Yeah.
You know, because Napoleon and the first colonial war in Haiti, he wants money, and Jefferson arrived and take with a good price. And 1 year after, it was a disaster for the French army and the victory of the what we call in French les Jacobins noirs,
the Black Jacobins,
of the Haitian Revolution. But Haiti was punished during 1 century with all this debt. It was like the debt for the nation, and Haiti must give money to France, and it's a key, one of the key of the big crisis. Mediapart got a partnership with journalists in Haiti. We publish their articles. We go to formation of journalists in IT. There is many links with IT. If you go Mediapart, you will saw some many reports and testimony of that. The last question, that's very curious, this sort of debate for me, and that's what this debate of the name, the name was. We quote this woman in many shows. It's an opinion. I don't know. I don't know what job is that to express opinion. Express opinion. You never find any information. You don't have academic word with the intellectual result, and there is a sort of people like that. I think there is that also on Fox News and other media who talk about opinions, but I don't know why they can, because they can, freedom of expression, but I don't know what sort of quality, what sort of experience, what sort of knowledge they can do that. And Mrs. Elizabeth Levy, it's a sort of also, I don't know, we must create a word for that sort of opinion makers, opinion dealing, opinion blah blah blah, opinion. Well, I don't know. And that's my reply about that. There is no media tribunal, mediatic justice. There is information. There is information in public interest, of public interest. There is a serious information. You publish them. They are on the table, and democracy discusses. And democracy must function. When I say Mr. Cahuzac must dismiss, I say even for himself, to defend himself. If there is information with suspicion of fraud against a minister. If the minister is in the power during all the polemics, he will be in conflict of interest. He will take in a stage all the government, all the administration. Okay, there is a presumption d'innocence.
Yes, you're presumed innocent.
And he can fight, he can defend himself, but he cannot defend himself. What's this sort of conflict of interest? That's, for me, the normal democracy. That's the reason there is a procedure in legal acts. You can be guilty and finally innocent. Mm-hmm. That's the reason there is protection of your rights and so on. that's the contradiction. Democracy is a conflict of law, of contradiction, of interest, and that's also a conversation in place of the conflict. In my last book, I quote the last reflection of French philosopher Michel Foucault. Michel Foucault.
So you can come to New York without citing Foucault.
Yes, many times. And Michel Foucault, this last course at the Collège de France was the courage of truth. Mm-hmm. And he explained that it's not the problem that the truth emerge, that there is some people who say the truth. In fact, for journalists, the factual truth. The problem is to create, and that's the reason we have got a great job, because it's not the situation at this time. To create the condition, the cultural condition, not only to say the truth, but to accept the truth. To accept, to receive the truth, even the truth against your conviction, against your opinion. Accept the truth. To a life in truth, vivre en vérité.
To live in truth.
To live in truth, it's accept the truth. Accept the disturbing truth, the disorder of the truth. And I think that means a stronger democracy. Accept the truth.
I just want to say one or two words here. This is my American suit now. Try to get this book. Le droit de savoir. Edwy Plenel. So it's a fascinating evening. I mean, everybody's sitting and they want one more evening out of you. So I'm really grateful that you came from Columbia, Harlem, Brooklyn. You know, Greenwich Village is actually a Francophone city. I hear more French in the streets in my neighborhood than in Dakar. You know, you hear more French, except you look back and you are in New York. So that explains why, I mean, of course there are French people from France who are here, but it's a Francophone city. I want you to know that. And you know, your erudition, your brilliance, your knowledge of journalism, I really want to thank you. I had one trip with him in Martinique, and you know, he's a wonderful guy. This is the journalist that was speaking. I was fascinated looking at him, listening to him. But the poet, the philosopher, wonderful man. And thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate it.